This is Bliss Oasis. Change your thinking, change your life.
Piga nini mtaro, because it's called mtaro. Mimi siwezi piga hii mtaro, alafu nivute hiyo vumbi, nipige hiyo mtaro, alafu nirudi ati kwa sababu nimekunywa chai na nimeshiba. We must do something. So out of it is how we did all this. So what happened is when this post-election violence erupted, these women were well stocked. Their homes had food.
Because of that
so
program.
When everything shut down, but now what happened is after that is when I went to see them. Remember now we are all mixtures, all types of ethnicities. So I greet this one. Many of them were selling on line Sabah, on the entry of line Sabah before you get to the railway.
Yes.
So I greet this one, napiga story. But the other one who used to come is not coming anymore because she belongs to another different ethnicity.
Welcome again to Bliss Oasis Africa, where every week we go out there bringing you untold stories of everyday people. And today we are lucky to have what she calls herself, Mama Machinani, Albina Hipp. We are recording her all the way from Finland, where she's currently studying. She'll tell us what she's studying, but she's also a poet. And very much interested in women affairs. I think they call them feminism or something like that. But she's going to tell us. So Albina, karibu sana to Bliss Oasis Africa. And briefly introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. And if I may use the word or the phrase, what the hell are you doing in Finland?
Well, thank you. Do I start with the last question? What am I doing in Finland?
Yes.
I am studying my PhD.
Yes.
In the Gender Studies Department, and my angle of research is women and conflict. And so that is the reason why I always tell people that I ask the question, why? And once I asked that question, why, it triggered sets of action that found me where I am. And the question I asked, why, was found within the resolution 1325 of where that the resolution, the United Nations Charter, the resolution 1325, which many people refer to as the Beijing Conference, where it reaffirms the important role of women in the prevention of conflict, peace, negotiation, peace building, peacekeeping, humanitarian responsibility, and stresses the importance of their equal participation in all efforts for the maintenance and promotion of peace and security. And so what led me to come across this resolution 1325 will take us back to our little history as Kenyans of the post-election violence 2007-2008, where we were challenged as Kenyans as we dealt with how to look at ourselves in the post-colonial time. And why I use the term post-colonial is because the post-colonial time is usually the time of transition where we change, where we are changing, we are evolving, we are defining who we are, not defined by, we're not using the definition which was given to us by our colonialists, but we are now moving forward as independent, free people.
Yeah.
So that So in that transition, there is this scholar who's called John Lederach, who equates conflict as a rip, a tear in the society. What he talks about is that there are events, that these things always happen. There are events that happen, little triggers here and there, and that create what we call negative peace. You are peaceful, but as we say, usinyamaze hivyo, ukinyamaza kuko na kashida. Someone says, wacha nimenyamaza, hakuna shida, haidhuru. But that is not peace. That is, in a way, peace is the absence of conflict.
Yes.
But yo haidhuru, bado yo mtu, there's that. So there was all this underlying, or under the surface, we were dealing with what we are after independence.
Yes.
Now, many people think that, this transition is, now the flag has gone up, we are free, we are Kenya. That is one. But then the society also has to now start transforming. And when I talk about transforming is, now we have we are generations, like myself, I am a generation, I can proudly say, I did not grow up under colonial rule.
Yes.
Mi sijui mbeberu.
Unaonanga tu wazungu.
Hapana, mi nasikianga hizo story. My grandparents found them, or were found by them. My parents were educated by them under their system. And remember, this system was 3-layered. It was not the way it is right now in Kenya. It was 3 layers based on the color of our
skin.
So the whites, number one. That's why there's this song, which one? What is it? Tulikuwa number 4, sasa tukawa number 1.
Bautan.
Yes, but you see, it says tulikuwa number
4.
Do I count for you now who those 4 are?
Okay.
Moja mzungu. Wa second?
Muhindi.
Wa third?
Sikane Mwarabu sijui.
Waine.
Aya, mimi na wewe.
And because we were the Waine, remember this is where we found ourselves in. Where, when we define the term nation, a nation, we are talking of, now we go into a little bit of a nation. What is a nation? A nation is a group of people who have a shared history, a shared language, shared beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And they agree to govern themselves as well.
Yeah.
So that's why we hear people talk about European nations.
Yes.
But then when you listen to like ours, we are what we call state, not nation. Why? It's because we are now very many people of different histories, different language, different everything coming together. We are a united nations. We are the example of what can happen to people when they all come together and agree. And that's why people want to really understand themselves what is so unique about Kenya. It's that. We are still going. Kenya bado tunaenda tu. Bado tunafanya tunaenda tu. We don't stop. We keep going. So, and why you use the definition of nation, then if I use I give an example of the European nations. We have German, is for who? German. Where I am right now, is Finland, is for who? Finnish. People who speak what? Finnish. That means they have the history, the shared language, English for the English, French for that. So that concept was then incorporated in the Berlin Conference. Hapo sasa ndio ikaanza. But they, because of the classification which they had at that time of us, this color, that we are it's a pity to be born this color because you're neither nor. You are neither animal, nor human, no rational thought, no nothing. So you are just this thing that it was a misfortune to be born in. And this is the same rhetoric, you hear it, but the words are now disguised, are laced this way, are laced that way. So you can hear it pass you and then you go like, hey, here and there, but no, but then we go on. So based on that classification, so they did not recognize our own nations.
Because we were already there as nations,
yes.
as different nations.
Yes, and we had our own civilization, we had our own way of governing.
Mm-hmm.
So now I come now to answer the question, the first one you asked. Where are you from?
I almost forgot. Yeah.
So I bring myself back to where I come from.
Yes.
I found, and I say I found because with no one on this earth said I'll be born Sijui.
Yeah.
No one.
Mm.
I remember when I was doing, when I was training to sell insurance in Alico. Those lessons are very nice. So the teacher, I can't remember his name, so he was teaching us and told us, well, if you feel afraid of when you go, when you're going to sell and you meet somebody, you feel intimidated. No. Sometimes remember that person is a person. So, yes, there's status and all manner of material expression of that status, but that is still a person.
Person like you.
And he said it in Swahili, kwa sababu hakuna mtu amezaliwa akishikilia suruali.
Okay. Hata wewe. Kwa hivyo tuambie ulizaliwa kwenu nini? Where did you find yourself?
So, because I found myself, I was born in the foothills of Mount Kenya to a Kikuyu family. And then I was socialized within the Kikuyu community. So I learned their language, I learned their laws, their regulations, their everything, their ways of doing, and their history.
Yes.
So that is how I found myself.
Okay.
And then what I'm doing here, as I explained, the question of why was the resolution 1325.
Yeah, you mentioned post-election violence, which kind of triggered you to go and do what you are doing there.
No, it triggered the question, which led up. We're talking of domino effects now.
Fine.
So it triggered the question.
Yes. So it triggered the question of why. The question was why.
Yes.
In order to answer that question, you went to do what you are doing now, study?
No, in order to answer that question, what happened was I was doing, I will, with all humility, I will mention his name briefly.
Yeah.
I think right now is Professor Maluki. Before I left, I was a student for him when we're dealing with diplomacy.
Yes.
He's I don't know where he's right now.
Okay.
Probably in the Nairobi University, but I don't know. So at that time with Dr. Maluki's class, the research was on diplomacy and the United Nations role in conflict and everything,
Yes.
And there was this post-election violence. And unfortunately for me, or fortunately, I had started with a group of women, a chama called Kadogo Kazuri. But this chama was so small in the sense that what we were doing is we were raising 5 shillings each. Alafu tunachanga, alafu tunaenda in Kibera, line Saba. Then we changa, then I because I would go to a wholesale shop, tunakubali, ni sugar. So I buy sugar, tunarudi, tunagawia, we gawa each other. Stop. Then the next week, unga ngano, the next week rice, just to keep that element of food stability. Ile, so mama akienda kufua nguo, akikosa ama kila atapata, anajua nyumbani mtoto akona chakula, watoto akona chakula. Because many of these people, there was a research done some time back, which brings the which was bringing the percentage, but that was before Kibera was divided into constituencies. That was so that research was pointing about, was it 65% of the inhabitants of Kibera were single mothers, self-employed or casual laborers. So you can look at those statistics, and so, but anyway, for me, I didn't use those statistics to get myself into Kibera. It's just the way you start having a friend here, there, unapita, hiyo chochoro, unaenda kununua, that's where you buy stuff.
Yeah.
So out of that I formed these friendships and these bonds with these ladies. So I said, now, what kind of friendship is this? If I'm just coming in, nakunywa chai yenu na talk, we have to benefit ourselves.
Yes.
I told her, mi siwezi piga nini mtaro, because it's called mtaro. Mi siwezi piga hii mtaro, alafu nivute hiyo vumbi, nipige hiyo mtaro, alafu nirudi ati kwa sababu nimekunywa chai na nimeshiba. We must do something. So out of it is how we did all this. So what happened is, when this post-election violence erupted, these women were well stocked. Their homes had food.
Because of that
so
program.
when everything shut down, but now what happened is, after that is when I went to see them. Remember, now we are all mixtures, all types of ethnicities. So I greet this one. Many of them were selling on Line Sabah, on the entry of Line Sabah, before you get to the railway.
Yes.
So I greet this one, napiga story. But the other one who used to come is not coming anymore because she belongs to another different ethnicity. So then, then when I finish with this one, then that one will call me. Hey, so I said, now this is too much. Before it took a while before I realized what was going on. So then I said, no, I cannot be having a conversation with all these women and getting home at midnight.
And they are not talking to one another.
They're not talking to and yet they were talking to one another too.
Before.
Look at them even saying, well, chakula iliisha siku ya vita, tulikula yote. Sasa tuanze tena, we anzisha. So I'm saying, nianzishe, and we were all together, tuanzishe tena, that kind of thing. I say, hapana, we anzisha. And these are ladies who I consider my mom. Iyo rika ya my mother,
Yes.
So mi ni mtoto wao. So I'm telling them, ni sawa nitaenda, lakini so then is when now I asked one, I said, what is this? And he said, huyo ni ametoka sijui, I don't mention the ethnicities. Mimi ni tuliambiana ikaende, So I said, no, just now you're all struggling. And before you were together. Sasa hii maneno ya siasa hata mjui imetokea wapi. Wengine nyinyi hata kuandika one ndio tunajifunza saa hii. Sasa why did you put it inside here, inside your heart? Si tusameane tuendelee. So in that whole process, then I had to now start educating them on peace, the dynamics, ethnic conflict, nini. Tukaanza hivyo. So the Kachama is still pushing, is trying to push. That's the most with all humility I said, tunajaribu. We are not the ones who will be written about or anything. Sisi ni wamama tunaendelea polepole. Ukiwa na shilingi 5 ni sawa, So, and we're dealing with that. So that element triggered me into writing a paper. Because of diplomacy. Now I use chapter 7.
No, okay, there's this question. While you are doing all this with these ladies, were you a student or are you working somewhere? And what was the interest with you and them, to them?
These are my friends. So, and I was a student at that time. I had enrolled in a master's.
Yes.
peace studies, international relations and peace studies.
Mm.
And at the same time, nilikuwa tu, unajua vile, I mean, we employ ourselves.
Yes.
Yes. So I was employing myself.
Mm.
So in that whole process, so of doing that is how I was able to function in all these spaces.
All right. Okay.
In all these spaces.
Okay.
And therefore, by using the diplomacy, I read then the resolution 1325.
Ah,
The Beijing conference.
the Beijing
Because
conference.
also at that time I was wondering, is feminist, what's this feminist?
Mm.
But then when I saw the impact of literally not reading or watching a movement, seeing it with my own two eyes, because also out of those women, they all had stories of that conflict.
Yes.
Many lost their sons, many lost their husbands, daughters were raped, you know.
And as far they were concerned, it is the other ethnic group which was doing to them.
So it was in that way. So I had to now delve into this. So I had a very good friend of mine, still is, and she now lectures in a university there. So we then decided to create a small curriculum to explain what conflict is. Imagine So then we started having sessions when we are having these chama meetings. So we have 5 minutes here, you know, where we have to vent, we have to, you know. So we actually did the whole process of, you know, creating peace, you know, trying this, unaingia, unafanya, unasoma kidogo, unarudi, you were in school, that kind of thing. So that resolution 35, when I saw it, then I saw the importance of it. Yeah. And I really wanted to explore a little bit deeper into it, but I didn't feel it. It was very abstract. I didn't feel it was the back, what it had the mind. I didn't feel like when it was created, the vision for it was for women of my skin tone. Why is because of the examples that they were using and when it was set up. Okay. At that point, so you know, the way you know is we have this dynamics. This we call it the dual consciousness, which you know, as an African, you know, so it's like you're two people in one. So you can quickly switch into yourself as an African, or that person who the colonialists were comfortable with. Because also remember, colonialism and its ideology have a particular way of dealing with people and how they want them to be. So if you are a person of my skin color, you're supposed to never look at them, look down. Remember, we're talking about segregation, all those, you know, that history. Yes, I do. You don't talk back, you know, you're yes, sir, you're always polite. But now, so yeah, let me ask you. I remember these women conference in Beijing was supposed to have been followed 10 years later by another one. Yeah. And I think many Kenya was well represented, because I also remember Wangari Maathai and some other women leaders were also in those conferences. The question I may want to ask you from your research, what has been the impact for Kenyan women from those successes or achievement since those conferences? That one now, I in all humility, I will let the Kenyan women talk. So now that's something you should do. But you are one of them. But you see, now for me, I'm still in the education process. I'm still delving because I'm looking at it. Okay. And then, you know, using this example, so, how are we transforming? Yeah. But because of this resolution 1325, I even came to understand the post-colonial element of us. All right. You know? of the dynamics that are playing within our society. Those little ripples that were not created by ourselves, but were created by the colonials. They have left, but they have left us with,
they are there.
With the history, the trauma, you know? So, and for me, doing some research on Kibera, of course, then you have to do some research on understanding how Kibera was formed. Why? What is this space? How can it be 5 kilometers to State House? You know, how can it? But it within the colonial, these were people, the Kibera was created for people who came with the colonials. Yes, the newbies.
Yeah, I always understood that.
And they came as mercenaries to help control the native population.
I didn't know that.
You can Google. Then, so there, and the Indians from India who came with the tea. Remember also the tea which we grow in Kenya, the root comes from.
It's from India.
They came with them. So even if we now start talking about immigration politics and everything, you can see Kenya is also dealing with it. So the Indians came, you know what they came to.
Okay, the tea and also to build the railway. The railway. Exactly. And also bring us tea.
Exactly.
I mean, when you are building a railway, you need tea sometimes. So
I mean, and it's so interesting how that tea, how tea became the universal commodity, but it's the one that creates the world system as it is till today. You know,
we even have tea politics now in Kenya. Farmers are complaining they are not being paid properly because.
But can you imagine? There were 2 companies, British East India Company and the Dutch VOC Company, that started. The first 2 companies, MNC, multinational companies in the world, established in 1606 and 16, I don't know, I think, or 2 or something, were to trade what?
Tea.
And more raw resources. And in that charter, when they were formed, they were allowed to colonize, sell slaves, own slaves, and establish colonies.
We will need more than one interview with you.
So when you drink tea or drink coffee, please look at the history. But what do we do with this history? That's why we talk of transition.
Yeah.
What was good then may not be good now. What I was yesterday is not what I am today, and it will definitely not be what I'll be tomorrow.
True.
So we are in transition.
So from you, that Beijing realization, and after working with this women group in Kibera and the conflict, the post-violence clashes.
Yes.
You found yourself. You decided to now do this peace studies. What you call it? What gender? What?
I decided, because now I was dealing with these mamas of Mashinani, and I was seeing that this is really important, because I was. So the reason for me doing this research was to critique Resolution 1325, because I did not see the African woman there, the Mashinani. I did not see the women who I walked through the Mitaros in that conflict, looking for food, looking for their children, going to mortuaries, taking their children to Nairobi Women, Nairobi Women Hospital, their daughters. I didn't see it. So I was looking and I said, no. And then I thought, maybe I could write about it. But in the process of writing, of course, then you have to do some little research. So that's when I did some research. And then because I was dealing with women, I remember my supervisor at that time is now Professor Mudida, Robert Mudida, I think he's in Strathmore University. And Professor Ogada, they advised me to go and understand what it is about this word woman. You know, so I put it in quotes because that's for me. I was like, woman is me, is what we go. But they were like, no, there's a little bit more. If you really want to delve into this, you need some basis understanding. And that's when I was referred to Professor Wanjiku Kapera, who is the director of African Women's Studies Center, Nairobi University. And that's how now I started my journey in feminism or gender studies.
Okay. And it is through her that you went to Finland?
Process of finding myself was the question which made me find myself here was to understand the dynamics, gender and feminism, because it was now, you know, it was Uko. So then in it, I also then said, it's not feeling really well. And I also came across this terminology called Black woman. This is a thing. We in Kenya, we're a little bit protected because we are a majority. But when you become a minority, and especially of a particular skin color, then you walk into some serious things. So it's when I started asking, I remember asking a few of my peers, what is this thing about Black woman? Because everywhere I'm going, Black woman, Black. I'm like, what is this? You know, what is this thing about this? And you know, plus the other words, you know, I didn't grow up hearing them. I came to find them when I'm much older. So I was wondering, what is all this, you know? And it's when I stumbled, and in that quest, I ended up also in Addis Ababa University, with the gender studies, and Makerere. Makerere is the one that gave me the books. Makerere University gave me the books. They told me, this is what you need. You have to start from scratch and find your way on top. So that's how I ended up starting feminist feminist theory 1. And that's when I got then also to understand that this title of a Black woman and what it means.
What does it mean? What does it mean? If you ask me, a Black woman is just a woman who's Black, but does it have a meaning beyond that?
In a way, I would like to say yes, but you want to take me into spaces I had not prepared for.
Just in a word or two, phrase or sentence.
Because it, the title Black woman actually is defined more through a well-known scholar and professor called Kimberly Crenshaw, where she wrote an article called Demarginalizing the Intersection of Race and Sex, yes? And where she tries to, you know, look at it and talk about the unique position of a Black woman. The unique position the Black woman finds herself between intersections, because she experiences different and unique encounters and events of her life. So it could be socio-economic, it could be, you know, race, it could be gender. It is not just one aspect that will affect her. So that's why she's called, that's why there's this Black woman, the term Black woman. So there are other women, but there's this Black woman because not only will she be affected by race, she'll be affected by gender as well. And when the two intersect, she becomes a unique entity. And her experiences are as unique, you know, that can be only related to by another fellow Black woman. Even the Black man cannot feel it, because remember, the Black man is going to meet this as a Black man, so he'll either meet race, you know, and he's within the hegemony of masculinity. Hegemony of masculinity is the structure of masculinity, where the, you know, different races are given different levels of in the hierarchy of masculinity. So the hegemony usually purports to say, because it's usually white supremacist capitalism, I'm going to use Bell Hooks definition. White supremacist capitalism that defines it replaces the white man as the top of the hierarchy, followed by, you know, tulikuwa number 4, you know, that kind of so in that way, so the Black man is so in that hierarchy of of masculinity, then the race dynamic starts, which Nelly Fuller talks about, where he talks about they affect human activity. They find you in all aspects of human activity, whether it is work, school, happiness, family, you know, rest, health, you name it.
Okay.
As a Black man, or as a Black race, you go through particular things that other races don't know, will not even are not familiar. And that's why you even hear the words white privilege and everything. You know, if you look at those dynamics, is that, you know, someone's door will be opened faster, whereas you who is Black, the door will be shut because they have seen you coming. No, it will not be shut when you're knocking. There's also different dynamics. I always use the example of a door. I also tried to use another time the example of a ship, the slave ship. Now let's talk about it. The Imperial British East African, those ships that were sailing, they even designed ships specifically for trading, for carrying Black people to the colonies to go and make sugar. You know, so that's why even there's this thing where people talk about when tea meets sugar, the world moves very fast, because now tea and sugar becomes a status that should be found in the tables of, that's why you have the high teas. Yeah, exactly. And they need to be produced. And if you look at capitalism goes where things are cheap, because to have high profit margins. So labor had to be cheap, where it's produced had to be cheap, and that's why those colonies were formed. And remember, these MNCs were entitled or given the rights to colonize.
Oh yeah, colonize. So that they can.
That's why we have the definition of colonies as plantation colonies. Then you have, is it protectorate? Then I don't know the other ones. This is a whole lesson, sorry.
So you are, before we started the interview, you said I'd given you some homework to do some thesis, but really,
it has not even gone anywhere near.
Yeah, that is why I thought maybe you need more than one. But then, following your quest and landing you in Finland.
These are the dynamo effects. This is what is, and these are the quests that I'm still trying to answer. You know, so this is then
after your questions have been answered in this quest and you're through with your studies, how do you plan to put them practically, or to work with them practically? Are you going back to Kibera, or what are your plans?
I haven't left Kibera.
Oh,
I'm still there.
So you've gone to Finland with Kibera.
The Chama is still there. You know, what has happened is I have realized how special this Black woman is. You know, she is the beginning, almost. She is the beginning of everything. She's the beginning of the human race.
Civilization, evil.
No. First, yeye ndio mama ya dunia yote, the black woman.
How do you say that?
Why?
Oh, why? Why do you
How?
say that? Why? Why do you say that?
Because the DNA has already proven it.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
If you go, you feel free. There's even National Geographics. They talk about the mother. I don't know, mitochondrial genome. I don't know which one. It all takes us all the way back between Serengeti and Maasai Mara. So if we get back, that's how far DNA has gone. That shows the first genetic Eve and the first genetic Adam is where you are at. Then which also leads me to another question. I'm sorry for those who trigger warning. That's what we always say, trigger warning. But this leads me to another question where I say, the Bible says God made man in his own image. So if already science has proven without a doubt that first man first was me, nywele ngumu la chang, unajua? The hair, yeah, and you. So God is whose image then, surely. So then we have that sets a whole element of, a whole trajectory of very many aspects of disobedient knowledge. Because then now you have to start questioning, how then did the color of God change when science, or does science and religion, are they separate? And then, and also then that comes to question, how far does it go? But
yes,
anyway.
that's another line altogether. So you told me you did not leave Kibera?
Yes, I'm still there because we are still working together, dealing with the new us, getting to understand the significance of us. Of course, it's very difficult, especially when I then talk about these two other Black women, of how special they are and how they should walk head high, proud of their skin tone, and knowing that they're the most beautiful, when everything almost in this world is glaring and declaring how ugly or how unfortunate she is to have been born that skin tone or born with that type of hair. So when you look at it, there are still girls coming. They are, so it's like I'm standing on shoulders that have empowered me this far, have got me this far. I can name them and not name them, like, all manner of Black women have broken barriers. And more needs to be broken. And until as us, as our race, go back, sit, and I use now what's her name? Naimaka. She talks about no ego feminism or nego feminism, where she talks about complementarity. She talks about how the African communities were never patriarchal in the sense of a hierarchy. We were going together. That's why women had their own roles and their own spaces and their own entitlement, So you can look at, that's what I'm talking about, that's why I also mentioned post-coloniality, because also when the colonials came, then these dynamics were changed. People had to wear trousers and ties and suits. The sun is hot. You don't care. And you had to acquire English names or names that they could pronounce. Again, language, you know? So these things, then we have to then now go back and look at ourselves and say, I don't need to bash the Black woman. She's not ugly. But it cannot come from people who do not. It comes from her own people, her own family, her own children. The respect and the honor of her, knowing that she is the creator of mankind. How special. You being a child of, if you knew you are the child of someone who created this world, it's very special. So she's, you know, so this specialness should be reflective and should be found within our interaction within each other. Many African women have been at it and are at it and are still at it. And that is also what's most empowering. But this articulation is through language. And sometimes it's also quite difficult to talk about someone's journey in a way that that can be, the word comprehensible sounds a little bit unique, but you know, that people can understand. Because sometimes your journey can just be a sigh. How are you?
And that's a whole story.
Or how are you? Or gota, you know, that,
yeah.
but that already is expression, and that's already language that says how our journey is.
Yes.
So then, and this language is buried in our joy, our sorrow, our worries, our fears, our triumphs. And it's a language that insists to be heard.
Yes.
And it insists. So at some point, it gets to the point where you say, wacha niongee. That is that
kama
language.
Ni kama ile haidhuru, unaiweka mpaka inajitokeza yenyewe.
Nasema wacha niongee. That is the language.
Yeah.
Because it insists to be heard. It can be audible, it can be something someone can understand, it can be something people don't understand at all. But it is the language of your journey. Okay. Therefore, for me, poetry is a means, a channel, or a medium that we can use to put words when words are not enough.
Okay.
So this, of course, then leads me to writing the two books. One is edited, and the other one, this is what
I'm an African woman.
An African, no, woman. I am African.
I'm African.
I am woman. Everyday poems of living. So again, as I said, it's a language that has to be spoken. So with poetry, you can take it whichever way. You know, it can be a sigh, it can be a cry, it can be a laugh, but it is that language that needs to be spoken. And again, if we look, as I said, Resolution 1325 brought me all this way because the language that was here was the one that was asking, who are you?
Yes. Who are you?
And why are you here? And why are you going through this journey?
Yes.
And so out of it, there was a poem that I wrote. Maybe I'll recite it.
Yeah, please.
Right? We have some time.
Yeah, we do.
And again, as I mentioned, it has a size, it has, you know, it's my expression of my journey as a Black woman. I am African. I am woman. I am earth. My straight back, high breast, long neck, straight gait, broad hips, broad lips, and curly hair that curves like I am the universe. From my womb, I produce all. Dark, yellow, brown, white. I suckle any from my breast with no spite, because they are part of me, humankind. I am genetic Eve, mother to humankind. Mother to humankind. Let me laugh. They mock, they ridicule me, they enslave me, they call me ugly. They have made everything that defines me backward, ugly, promiscuous, uncivilized, pubic, aggressive, angry, the devil.
Oh.
They have hanged my children like fruit from the trees. They have sold my children like as chattel. They have caged my children and displayed them in laboratories. They have been found there too. My body, voluptuous, beautiful, strong. They have exorcised, prostituted it, and eroticized it, my nudity. Dark like the earth, soft and gentle like the flows of the universe. That is me, African woman. I am part that moves not. Like Kali, I am part of the cycles of life and time, times that are not and times that are fine. I have tilled the land for myself, for others, including those who thought that they were my masters. I have toiled, I have fought, I have died side by side with others of like mind. Freedom, liberation, the end of shackles for all humankind. All who are incarcerated, boxed in the caricatures of hierarchy, patriarchy, othering, and border making. My freedom is freedom for all. I am African. I know who I am. I define from nature my strengths, my weaknesses, my ebbs, my flows, my history, all that show I am earth, I am universe. I am African, I am woman, I am earth, my straight back, high breaths, long neck, strong gait, broad lips, broad hips, and curly hair that curls and curves like I am. The universe. Thank you.
Wow, that's nice. That's powerful. I was a bit carried away and mesmerized, particularly when I saw that African lady. You know, the curves, the curls. It's nice. It's great. So yeah, that's one of that point from the first book.
Yes.
Okay, and how many poems does it have?
I have to count.
Oh, you have to.
I have to count. I'm sorry.
You mean you don't have to give the exact number.
Well,
Maybe how many pages?
once it gets on Kindle, then it will be available. Because it's not for. It is again to empower.
Yeah. So is it available? I mean, if somebody wanted to buy a copy.
The distribution channels have not yet been arranged so well.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
but
it
is possible to buy because of course it's on sale. But
all right.
But I don't want to tell somebody, oh,
You
send
plan
me
to
money.
go. You plan to go there eventually.
Yes, of course after, because I would the two once we launch the second book, and then we can set up channels. And of course, Sebuleni will probably.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sebuleni shortly. But what is the other book?
It's the same. It's the same, but it's edited.
Oh, I see.
It's edited. It has other contributing other contributors to it. Other African
poets.
Black.
So it's an anthology of poetry from African women, or just
African women. It's unfortunately it's that specific.
Oh, I see, no problem.
Because it's her everyday living. So if she's dealing with whatever she's coming across, she writes about it. Because this uniqueness of this Black woman, she's in between race and gender.
Yeah.
It's hitting her in places she doesn't even know exist. Even her own self, she doesn't. It's just creating this unique circumstance that she has to face, that she has to raise children on her, that she, it's the dynamic. I mean, if you look at across the board, even the history of the Black woman, wherever she is, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It is not easy. And sometimes even the Black one don't understand. So even anaongezea.
Anaongezea mzigo.
Because remember it's on the hierarchy of hegemony.
Yes.
So he's looking and as the white one, he does like this. So I can do like najui.
So
but if he understood these dynamics, then that complete, like the African dance, our dance styles, they were, it's complementary, wasn't it? There's the one who is the soloist. There was a lady soloist and a male soloist. It was always it was never the Victorian where the man must take the lead.
Okay. You've really done your research. Now,
that's why it is called people who drink.
People who drink.
PhD.
It's called what? People who drink.
People who drink.
Okay.
Who
drink.
I find it better than the other one.
The age, permanently, whatever. So you mentioned about Sebuleni. Sebuleni is an online magazine, for those who don't know, which carries out fiction, short stories, and poetry. And you have been a contributor there. And you mentioned that you will be kind of publishing some of your stories, poetry there, didn't you? And maybe it's not for saying right now, but you also think Sebuleni, which is a continental thing, because we have writers from all of Africa, might play a part in future in maybe publicizing that kind of stories and because from Africa.
Yes, because it is I would like to say it's a gift from nature. Because what is in Sebuleni is really authentically African.
Yeah.
It is not, remember, whoever pays the piper calls the tune.
Call the tune.
So many of these things, if you are being published by someone whose mind is already a little bit, having some little bit of some bigotry there, you will be told this, I do not understand, because of course it's language.
Yeah.
So then they say, no, maybe I do not understand. But then in this one, the language is understood because it's of people who are
within
within the same, you know. So it's so, and the piper, there's no one who's calling the tune.
The piper is your own person.
It lets Sebuleni lets the language that insists to be heard.
We had
Be heard.
good.
In whatever way. If you want to write direct translation of Kiswahili to English,
You just write it.
Malikuja Makienda Matakam,
It is there. It is published.
because it's authentic.
It is. It is.
And that's the essence of also grassroots.
It's true.
Because then if you say, no, it has to be good English, then you lock off very many other people, lock off talent, you know, and this is the authenticity that is needed, because we are now moving, we are now transitioning to our space.
Yes.
Remember, I also talked about Kenya being a post-colonial.
Yeah.
Do you know when they left, because these dynamics were still at play, who left with them? The Indian. The Nubi was to be taken back by Kenyans to South Sudan. To Sudan.
We are still waiting.
How come? Why did they see that the Dubis were too black enough not to give them citizenship, not to make them members of the British Empire? Why? Why did they? You know, these are the things. If we look at these things, we have to then, you look and you see. So you kind of see the dynamics that are at play. But then also, you know, that we stand there and say, okay, this was done. You know, we then seek solutions of how, you know, how we can transform this conflict, because it's still a conflict. Remember that in the colonial time, the system was, there were people who were allowed to go to school and others were not. People who were accredited, who were allowed to be given credit by banks and others were not. It was on that same tier.
Hierarchical.
Yes, education. That's why we had now the African independent schools. And that's where the independence started, the push came from. But if it was left to be the way it was, that was not going to happen.
No.
These people, so even when you look at it economically, you know, many people wonder what is happening.
Yeah.
Why is
Albina, talking about women, women and the African woman and the feminism, due to fate, Tanzania now have a woman president.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And because of what happened the other day, Kenya has a woman chief magistrate, or rather chief justice, and her deputy is also a lady. What's your take on that?
Well, as I said, nego-feminism. We as African communities, I said, how do we do? We don't take leads. There are no gender roles aspect there. You know, the men dance to yako, and it was at a specific time. But when it was the communal dance, there was complementarity. Okay. And I know it will be done. You know.
So we are getting back there.
Exactly. Because remember, this is as the poem says, this is the mother. And why I say, why would I have even written and said that I circle all? I have no. I also tell people, the only woman who doesn't really know what color of child she's going to give birth to is the black one. You will white utazaa kweli ama uongo? Mweupe brown utatoa, mweusi utatoa. The others are almost self-defined. Wakizaa wanajua. So now so the most neutral person
is the African, the black woman.
So if you free her, unafikiri utakuwa mabaya?
Utakuwa na mazuri.
Kapsa, mama, even you, mama Ninan, even, I'm sorry to use his name, but you know, it's not even something I can use. But remember, even George Floyd himself, he called his own mother. Why do you call your mother?
Wow, okay. That's great. So, what's your last word to us here, your friends in Kibera, the powers that be, future writers?
I can end with this poem called Sisterhood. This is one of the few that also made me find my way to this Black woman empowerment.
Okay.
And it's from this book, African Women, African Women and Feminism.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see it.
By Oyeronke Oyewumi. So
that's
as I said,
the other.
Yes, we have been at it. But of course, everyone has their own disciplinary and their own perspective. That's also something people also have to understand.
Yes.
How I see a red table is not the same way you see your red table.
Sure.
It's the same one. So this poem, Sisterhood. White sister told me, all women are one, united in the face of chauvinism. Pardon my English. I smiled. Tree, Aki is the cross women carry, she charged. We must unite to fight it with all our might. I laughed. Racked with spasm, my head jerked back and crazily wobbled from side to side. Pampered sister tit lets herself to frenzy with quixotic tales of male exploitation. I, dumb Black woman, laughed mirthlessly on flicking away tears of pain from my eyes. I looked up from my chore on the kitchen floor where newfound sister had ordered me to be on knees, to scrub the floor clean for the pittance she paid on knees to scrub the floor clean for Sister Rasi. By Nikiru Nzegu.
Wow, wow.
But again, yes. Oh, I don't know. But again, these same dynamics are also being found within our own Black women.
Oh, yes.
The one who's up there will tell that other Black woman, "Weh, kuja, hujafanya, kikombe na tupwa chwa." That is also disrespecting not only yourself, but the Black woman. Others will make a mockery of, oh, nywele yake imekata haezi enda pam. Or others you if we stop doing that.
Okay. Great.
So equality for all. If
for
you
all, even between the you.
Yes. So even that African woman who is helping you, treat her with respect. Knowing that she's also a mother and Again, I told Mimi ni mashinani, so I have got the stories.
And you have a lot of stories, and you have a lot of stories and very interesting stories, and you can tell stories with a domino effect, because once you pick a topic, it continues growing and growing and growing. So I think we will end up here for today, and thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming to Bliss Authors Africa. We have learned a lot about feminism. We have learned a lot about the Beijing. You remember us about Beijing conference, and we've also enjoyed your poetry. So looking forward to maybe hosting you again in the near future. when we can talk about other things, maybe sebuleni and other stuff. Thank you very much, na usalimie watu wa huko mashinani ya Finland. Huko Finland kuna mashinani.
Iko.
But-
That's the thing about society. There's always wale wako juu
na
na
kuna
wale
mashinani. So,
na wale wanakimbia huku na kule.
yeah, so thank you very much. And I hope
you.
we shall continue meetings in Sebuleni or here eventually
Yes.
again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
thank you for those who are listening. And again, apologies for the trigger warnings.
No problem. At least there
It can
were
happen that you end up upsetting somebody, but it's not the intention. It's
at
the
least there were warnings anyway. Yeah.
Because again, it's the expression of the language
Of
that
course.
is buried within.
Of course.
That
So
insists
yes.
to be heard.
Yeah, and kweli. So thank you very much, and be seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us until the end. Bliss Oasis Africa offers the following services: counseling and life coaching, mentorship in creative writing, publishing and consultancy, website development and digital marketing. Please visit us at our website www.blissoasis.co.ke for more information. You can also call or send us a WhatsApp message on 0722 563 544. Thank you.